Welcome back to the channel. I'll be covering the predicted lineups for all 20 Premier League clubs in this video, and I'll be delving into the set piece takers so you're well prepared for Game Week 1 and beyond. And you can see my predictions on screen. I've made a few modifications from the last time I showed this in one of my previous podcasts. So Liverpool 3, Bournemouth 1. I've maintained the same scoreline there. The same goes for Aston Villa 3, Newcastle 2, Brighton 2, Fulham 2, Sunderland 1, West Ham 2, Tottenham Hotspur 3, Burnley 1, but I'm having some second thoughts about that one because despite the fact that Tottenham are unbeaten in pre-season at the time of this recording, they do face PSG in the UEFA Super Cup final just 3 days before Game Week 1. I've also got Wolves 1, Man City 2, Chelsea 1, Crystal Palace 0, Nottingham Forest 1, Brentford 1, Man United 2, Arsenal 2. I think in the last couple of friendlies, Arsenal have been vulnerable defensively and they haven't really clicked as a unit just yet. And Leeds United 1, Everton 1. So essentially the last two scorelines I have changed, and you will see my final predictions in the deadline stream on the 15th of August. The same goes for even more detailed analysis and stats. That includes the top 10 captaincy options, clean sheet odds, over 2 goals odds, you name it. Everything you need to know for FPL will be covered on this channel. The same goes for UCL Fantasy when it returns at the end of this month. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for FPL or UCL Fantasy, and keep your eyes peeled for even more content throughout pre-season, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, furloughs to my videos, amongst many other perks, and it's a great time to sign up because sometimes you can get early access days in advance compared to anybody else. There's also my Discord server, the FPL League, and Spotify, which can also be found in the description. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The first team covered in this video is Arsenal, who will have David Raya in goal despite a solid pre-season outing from Kepa Arrizabalaga, who saved multiple penalties against AC Milan in a shootout, and he also saved one against Villarreal, but Arsenal lost both of them. They definitely need to work on their penalties, and I think in the last 2 games against Tottenham Hotspur and Villarreal, they've looked really shaky defensively. They need to fine-tune a few things offensively and also really make themselves solid at the back, which is one of their main strengths over the last couple of years. But they relied too much on set pieces in the last couple of friendlies, particularly against Villarreal. They scored a penalty won by Max Dowman, a 15-year-old. He has been the star of an otherwise mediocre preseason tour for the Gunners. I think Ben White has also looked very solid, and he could be the starting right back for Arsenal in Game Week 1. But at the moment, I've opted for Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Lewis Skelly. And it was good to see Gabriel off the bench against Villarreal and getting some minutes, but he missed a penalty actually. It was a great save by the goalkeeper onto the crossbar, but I think he will be the starting centre-back alongside Saliba against Man United away in Game Week 1. Zubimendi and Rice haven't played too much together in pre-season, only 30-40 minutes against Villarreal, and Odegaard should complete that midfield with Saka, Martinelli and Gyökeres. But what about Havertz and Madueke? They could still enter the starting lineup, and that is something that could be addressed in an updated lineups podcast where I'll also talk about the star players from every single Premier League club and also the results throughout pre-season. But with the penalties, I think Gyökeres could take them off Odegaard and Saka, but it was the club captain who scored on 2 occasions from the spot against Villarreal and Newcastle, and in the shootouts he converted against the Spanish outfit but missed against AC Milan. And in terms of direct free kicks, I think that's between Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. And for corners, Rice and Saka will be the main takers, but Odegaard is a nice third option there for the Gunners. The next team covered is Aston Villa, and Morgan Rogers is a doubt for Game Week 1 now, and that's why I've opted for Daniel Marlon on the right wing. He has been outstanding in pre-season with 2 goals and 3 assists, and Ollie Watkins has scored in 4 consecutive games in these friendlies. So those two have been really impressive, and Rogers scored on 2 occasions, but there is a chance he misses that game against Newcastle at home in Game Week 1. And Emi Martinez is suspended. He got that red card against Man United in Game Week 38 last time out. So Bizot should be the main starting goalkeeper for Game Week 1 at least, and a back four of Matty Cash, Konsa, Mings and Luka Dean looks quite likely, but I might change that left centre-back role and go for Pau Torres instead, for example. So that's one that is maybe a little bit less certain. And in the midfield, Kamara and Tielemans looks quite nailed on, even though you've got Amadou Onana as well. And there's also McGinn as the attacking midfielder, Jacob Ramsey on the left, and of course Watkins up front. I think Marlon offers great value at 5.5 million. He was highlighted in my budget players video, so be sure to check it out. He also is a massive differential with 2.5% ownership, and when I made that graphic a few weeks ago, he had 0.9% ownership, but his form has really got people turning towards him as a 4th or 5th midfielder, and he could certainly be worth a punt, especially if Morgan Rogers is out in the medium to long term. The injury didn't look good and he went straight down the tunnel. But with the set pieces, I think Watkins and Tielemans will share the penalty duties. For direct free kicks, I think Luca Dean will take them if he's on the pitch. Tielemans, Dean, McGinn and Bailey will share the corners, but Bailey is no longer a guaranteed starter as he was 2 or 3 years ago, and he was a decent FPL option. We could see Daniel Marlon take that sort of role and be one of the best budget midfielders in the game. Aston Villa's fixtures might look mixed bag in the first 4 game weeks, but I think longer term, they look really solid. They are top of the fixture difficulty rating for the first 8 game weeks. Compare that to Arsenal, for example, who are bottom for the first 6 game weeks with some really tough fixtures, as you saw against Liverpool away, Newcastle away, Man City at home, all within the first 6. So that doesn't look too appealing. But I think Aston Villa could be worth doubling or tripling up on, especially with Ollie Watkins up front. But the third team is Bournemouth, who have been decimated by the outgoings throughout the summer. But Petrovic and Troffer are good replacements for the likes of Kepa Arrizabalaga and Milos Kerkez. I think Senesi and Hill will be the main centre-backs, with Smith on the right, even though Araujo is another option there for the Cherries. And I've gone for Scott and Adams in the midfield, but Ryan Christie is still capable of breaking into that starting 11. I've gone for Tavernier on the right, Semenyo on the left, and Justin Kluivert is linked with clubs like Roma, so he might not stay with Bournemouth until the very end. But if he is in that team, I think he'll start against Liverpool away, and Evanilson up front looks quite nailed on as well. For the penalties, it will be Kluivert, then Evanilson. Direct free kicks will be for Tavernier, and for corners, I think he'll also be the main taker, with Kluivert, Cook and Christie also sharing those corners depending on which side they're taken from. And Bournemouth's long-term fixtures are decent, but a lot of people can't look past that Game Week 1 fixture against Liverpool away, and I don't really blame you. With Brentford though, it looks even more appealing in terms of the fixtures, and despite losing a lot of key players and their manager, they still have some decent FPL assets on offer. That includes Kelleher, the highest owned goalkeeper in the game with over 30% ownership, and he only costs 4.5 million. And I think Collins is a very good option at 5 million because of defensive contributions. He can also score a few goals, and last season he got 6 fantasy assists. Coyote on the right, Lewis Potter on the left, and Vandenberg completes that defensive line. And in the midfield, this is slightly challenging, but I've gone for Jordan Henderson and Jensen, but there is the new signing Malambo, who can play as a winger or an attacking midfielder, but I think Damsgaard will be the main number 10, and I've also gone for Fabio Carvalho on the right, but I think Brentford might sign a right winger or just play Malambo in that position, and Kevin Schade is on the left. And if Wisso leaves, I think Igor Thiago will be the main striker for Brentford this season, and he could offer decent value at 6 million. That Game Week 3 fixture against Sunderland away looks particularly appealing, and with the duties, I think Wisso will be the main penalty taker, but I don't think he'll stay. Igor Thiago will be next up, and for free kicks, it'll be Damsgaard and Lewis Potter, and Damsgaard will be the main corner taker with Jensen in second place. But if you have any kind of qualms about what I'm saying, if you think that maybe things will change and something has definitely kind of altered throughout pre-season, then let me know down in the comment section below, whether it's for the lineups or the free kick takers, penalties, corners, you name it. That's what the comment section is there for. But Brighton is next up. They played a back 3 in a lot of games last season, but throughout this pre-season tour, they have played a 4-2-3-1 actually. So we could see this formation with a Bruggen in goal, Vifa on the right, despite the fact that he's more of a defensive midfielder. Van Heck and Lewis Dunk is a solid centre-back partnership, but they've also got Coppola, who they signed from Serie A, and a few other options like Boscagli from PSV Eindhoven. So I think Brighton will shift to a back 3 eventually, but for Game Week 1, they might settle for this back 4, which includes the Kuiper, who is my favourite Brighton defender in FPL. Baleba is linked with Man United, but if he stays at Brighton, I think he'll partner Yari, who's had a great pre-season tour, getting a lot of goals and assists from that position. And Minter scored a brace in a recent pre-season friendly, and Matoma only has 1 goal throughout the summer. Jorginho Rota could offer decent value in the attacking midfield role, and Danny Welbeck at 6.5 million is a decent option when he stays fit. But I think Matoma, the Kuiper, and possibly even Danny Welbeck are the best options, maybe even in that particular order. But Mitoma is number one for me, despite having a pretty mixed bag pre-season in general from a goals and assists perspective. Brighton's fixtures are quite mixed bag, and with the penalties, I think Welbeck is the number one taker, with O'Reilly in second. For the free kicks, I think Welbeck, O'Reilly, Gomez and Ayari will share them, and it depends who's on the pitch. For corners, Ayari, O'Reilly, Gruder, March and Minter would be the main takers, and I think with Solly March, he is the forgotten man now at this point, despite that infamous ghost goal in FPL from a few years ago. Next up is Burnley, who is the first newly promoted club covered in this video, and they could sign Dubravka. I think it's pretty much on the cusp of being completed right now, and we could have a 4 million starting goalkeeper in Fantasy Premier League. So maybe Vice doesn't even start in Game Week 1, and that's where an updated lineups podcast could come into play. The back four could comprise of Kyle Walker, Tuanzebe, Esteve, and Hartman, and my only doubt would be if it's Ekdal or Tuanzebe at right centre-back. In the midfield, I think Cullen and Laurent would be the holding midfielders, with Edwards on the right, Jadon Anthony on the left, and then Hannibal Miebri in the attacking midfield role, and Fleming up front. But in some recent preseason games, Edwards was the sole striker, and he's been really impressive throughout the summer, much better than what he showed since January, where I think his fitness levels weren't quite there yet. And I think Edwards could be one of Burnley's best options in FPL, and they are making even more signings. Of course, Broja could be another one to think about, and maybe Burnley switch to a 4-4-2 or just play two strikers to have Fleming and Broja at the same time. But I think more often than not, we will see this kind of 4-2-3-1. And Scott Parker has talked about the necessity of being tactically flexible. So they could even shift to a back three at times and be even more defensive in games like Liverpool at home in Game Week 4. In terms of the penalties, though, for Burnley, Fleming should be the number one taker, Edwards in second, and then Barnes in third, who is a 4.5 million forward, but he's not going to start many games, if any. Last season in the Championship, he didn't start a single one, just like Patrick Bamford, of course, and I talked about this in my recent podcasts. For free kicks, I think Anthony, Fleming and Edwards would be the main takers, and a similar kind of list here, with Anthony once again on corners, Pires, and also Marcus Edwards as well. But let's go to the next team in Chelsea, who are the reigning champions in the Club World Cup and the Conference League. And I think it will be Robert Sanchez in goal, and Malo Gusto will be the preferred right back. I think Reece James could have his minutes managed, and sometimes we'll see Enzo Fernandez playing alongside Moises Caicedo, and then a different option like Palmer in the attacking midfield role, and then playing Gittins and Pedro Neto simultaneously. But I think their main starting 11 right now would comprise of Gusto, Chalobah, Colwill, and Cucurella, with James and Caicedo in the midfield, Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, and Neto as the three players just behind João Pedro. And I think Delap will be the kind of 12th man for them, so to speak, and maybe he'll break into that starting 11 eventually. But right now, João Pedro does have that number 9 spot because of his great performances in the Club World Cup. And I think Chelsea could still sign another player or two. With all the sales they're producing, they can get, absolute flops basically, or players who haven't really impressed too much throughout their Chelsea stint, and still get decent money for them. So I think Chelsea will still be active in this transfer market, and that could shake things up a little bit. And obviously they signed Hato for around 40 million from Ajax, and he's a left-footed centre-back, and he can play in different positions, and he maybe cover for Cucurella from time to time. But it will be interesting to see if Hato takes Colwill's spot or plays alongside Levi Colwill himself, and then Chalobah will drop to the bench. That would be my main doubt, I think, with this starting 11, and also with Reece James. Maybe he starts at right back and Gusto's on the bench at times, with Enzo Fernandez playing deeper, as I mentioned before. But with the penalties, I think Palmer is undoubtedly the number one taker, and João Pedro would be second. Palmer, James and Enzo will take the free kicks, and then Neto, Palmer, Enzo Fernandez and Reece James will be on those corners, and Chelsea have great opening fixtures to start the season. Crystal Palace, not so much, especially for the first 3 game weeks, but I think their starting 11 is easier to predict, and once I say that, watch me get multiple wrong for Game Week 1. They do face Liverpool, of course, in the Community Shield. We'll see how that lineup goes, and that should be very indicative of how they will start against Chelsea away in Game Week 1. But Dean Henderson should remain the number one goalkeeper despite the signing of Walter Benitez from PSV Eindhoven. Richards, Lacroix and Mark Gay will be the main 3 centre-backs, with Wharton and Kamada in central midfield. The wing-backs should be Mitchell and Daniel Munoz despite the signing of Borna Sosa. And the front 3 will be Ismaila Sarr, Eze, if he stays at the club, and Jean-Philippe Mateta. With the penalties, that will be shared between Eze and Mateta. I also think Eze will be the main free kick taker. He's a great one at that. And for corners, it will be between Eze, Hughes, Wharton, and Borna Sosa, who got an assist in pre-season as well. And I think my favourite options from this team would be Eze, Mateta, and Daniel Munoz. But Lacroix looks really enticing as well. With Everton, a 4-2-3-1 is likely. And David Moyes said that they are a little bit light. They need more signings before the start of the season, and it doesn't look likely at the moment, so they might be in a bit of a pickle despite some promising opening fixtures. Jordan Pickford had that price increase to 5.5 million. He will start. There is no shadow of a doubt about that. The back four should comprise of Jake O'Brien, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, and Mikalenko. And Dewsbury Hall is a very decent signing, actually. I think he'll play as the attacking midfielder with Idrissa Gana Gueye and Ghana in central midfield, with McNeil on the right, Indai on the left, who has been reclassified to a midfielder, and he's on penalties for Everton. And I think it will be Tierno Barry up front, but maybe Beto will start game week 1, and we see Barry introduced over time as he gradually enters that starting 11. But with the penalties, as I just mentioned, I think Ndai would be number 1. Then it will be Barry and Beto. The free kicks will be shared between Alcaraz and Ghana, and it also depends on who's on the pitch. And for corners, McNeil is the number 1 taker, and Ghana would also take some of those duties. Everton are also linked with Jack Grealish in an ambitious move, so let's see if anything happens there. Any updates or any transfers will be covered on this channel, of course, and Everton have decent opening fixtures, so it might be worth investing in one of their defenders. Jordan Pickford is always one of the best goalkeepers, and offensively, you might want to go for Tierno Barry, actually, or Dewsbury Hall as a family midfielder, but my favourite pick is still Ndai with those penalties and that 6-point family and price tag. Fulham are up next. They could also play a 4-2-3-1, and Harry Wilson has been outstanding in pre-season with 5 goals. I think he'll start over Ryan Sessegnon at the moment. Leno would be in goal. Tete, Joachim Andersen, Bassi and Robinson in that defensive line. Sandenberg and Lukic in central midfield. And Smith-Rowe has played a lot of games on the left, but I think he'll play more of a central role, and Iwobi would enter that starting 11. He hasn't played too much in pre-season, but I think he'll still start in game week 1 against Brighton away. And Raul Jimenez is the first choice striker over Rodrigo Muniz, but that is something you maybe want to avoid over the course of the season. In terms of penalties, Raul Jimenez and Andreas Pereira will be the 2 top takers, but I think Jimenez is number 1. Andreas Pereira, Raul Jimenez, Wilson and Kearney would take the free kicks. Andreas Pereira, Lukic and Wilson would be on those corners, and I think Wilson could be a very decent shout to start the season if he continues this form. I think at 5.5 million, you can't really go wrong with that sort of pick. I think Fulham's fixtures are quite mixed bag. They face Chelsea away in that local derby in game week 3, but they also face Leeds at home in game week 4. And speaking of which, that's the next team covered in this video. Perry has had some injury problems in that goalkeeper position, but he should start in game week 1, assuming that he does recover in time. Bogle, Rodon, Struijk and Goodmanson will be the starting back 4. But in game week 2, when Biol is available, because he's suspended against Everton at home, I think Biol could take Rodon's spot. So keep an eye out for that situation. I wouldn't really invest in Rodon at the moment, to be honest, even though his defensive contributions potential is very impressive. I just don't think his starting berth is guaranteed like it has been over the last couple of years. But maybe Leeds United fans will challenge that view, and be sure to do that in the comments section. Ampadu and Tanaka could be the central midfielders, and Stack is really a defensive midfielder by trade, but in a recent preseason game, he scored and played as an attacking midfielder. Daniel James and Nonto will be the wingers, and Pirou has been outstanding in preseason as well with multiple goals, and he could be the standout Leeds United option, to be fair, even over Goodmanson at 4 million, whether it's Biol or Rodon at 4 million. And Pascal Struijk does share penalties with Pirou, and it does depend on who's on the pitch and stuff like that. I think Pirou would be number 1 and Struijk second, but that is definitely up for debate. 4 free kicks, it should be between Gruev, Aronson and Pirou. And for corners, Daniel James, Gruev and Harrison, who is one of their new signings. He could also break into that starting 11. And after Everton at home, it's quite difficult for Leeds, facing Arsenal away and Newcastle at home. But next up is the Premier League champions Liverpool, and Gravenberch is suspended for game week 1. That's why I've gone for Szoboszlai and McAllister in central midfield, and there aren't many doubts about the defensive line, even though Bradley could get starts off Frimpong. He is currently an injury doubt, and that would boost Frimpong's appeal even further. Alisson's the main starting goalkeeper, there's no denying that. Konate and Van Dijk in central defence, and Kerkez as the left back, Salah on the right, Wirtz in attacking midfield. Gakpo has been brilliant in pre-season with multiple goals. I think he'll be the main left winger unless Liverpool have one more deal in them to potentially get Alexander Isak over the line. Even though it looks less likely now, I still wouldn't rule it out definitively at this stage. And Ekitike would play up front at 8.5 million. He could be another decent differential, to be fair. But besides Salah and Wirtz, Gakpo would definitely be in line for me at 7.5 million and his recent pre-season form. With the penalties, Salah is number 1 and McAllister second. I think Gakpo and Ekitike could be the 3rd and 4th penalty takers. With free kicks, Szoboszlai, Van Dijk, Wirtz and Salah would share them. McAllister, Wirtz and Robertson would take the corners though, and I think that would complete the set piece takers for Liverpool as well. And Man City are also of great interest. Will Rodri be fit in time for Game Week 1 and start games consistently? Because it was kind of mixed bag in the Club World Cup where he made a massive impact when he started certain games but then just couldn't stay fit. And I think that midfield partnership of him and Reinders could be brilliant in the Premier League this season. And there is a big debate about their goalkeeper. Will Trafford start from the get-go against Wolves away, or will Ederson be given a chance to retain his number 1 spot? The defensive line should be Matheus Nunes, Ruben Dias, Gvardiol, Arnaud Nuri, and besides Reinders, I've gone for Bernardo Silva and Gundogan in the midfield, but that is certainly controversial. And with the wingers, Savio and Doku, who are the most direct and pacey wingers that Man City have to offer, and Erling Haaland up front, but there's still Phil Foden, Rodri and other quality players to add to the mix. So Man City could, as always, be one of the most difficult teams to predict in terms of these starting lineups. Haaland is the main penalty taker and Marmoush is second. With free kicks, it's between the Egyptian, Foden and Echeverri. Foden, Gundogan, Savinho and Silva will take the corners, but I think Marmoush looks quite appealing, taking a lot of those set pieces, and ultimately Man City are going to be a high risk and high reward team. Erling Haaland is one of the only players who is quite nailed on, but he does cost 14 million, making him the second most expensive player in the game. Let's now go to the other side of Manchester in Man United, and Onana is currently at 50% chance of playing. He has been injured throughout pre-season and Bayender has been taking that number 1 spot for now. But I think Onana, if he's fit in time against Arsenal, and the reports from a few weeks ago indicated that he will be, I think he'll start there against the Gunners with Yoro, De Ligt and potentially Luke Shaw at left centre-back, with Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes in central midfield, Amad Diallo and Dorgu as the wing-backs, Mbeumo, Cunha and Rasmus Højlund. But another possibility, which we saw in the 2-2 draw against Everton in the recent pre-season friendly, is having Cunha up front, Mbeumo on the right and Bruno Fernandes as the left forward. So that would mean Casemiro would partner Ugarte, for example, or they would go for something a little bit different. Amad Diallo can also play in a more advanced role. But United do have depth in certain positions, but up front they still need that quality striker. Matheus Cunha is more of an inside forward and attacking midfielder, to be fair, and he does fit this 3-4-2-1 formation perfectly during his time at Wolves. And with the penalties, Bruno Fernandes is number 1. I think Mbeumo is second and Matheus Cunha would be third, but we could see them share the penalties between them. Bruno Fernandes has done that before with the likes of Marcus Rashford. With the free kicks, Bruno Fernandes is number 1, but Matheus Cunha is another decent option for those set pieces. Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, Amad Diallo and Shaw would take the corners as well. So I think United have a lot of decent options in FPL. The same goes for Newcastle with Nick Pope in goal, but Aaron Ramsdale could challenge him for the number 1 spot. Livramento, Cher, Burn and Lewis Hall completes that defensive line with Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton in the midfield. I think Anthony Gordon will be the starting striker with Jacob Murphy on the right and Harvey Barnes on the left. But what about Elanga? He could still break into that team. I think Murphy has been one of their best players in pre-season, and I think it would be a bit unfair if he dropped to the bench. But Elanga, of course, was a big summer signing and he's going to get plenty of game time and starts this season, so he will eventually be the main right winger, so to speak. But Jacob Murphy could still get some games in a deeper position and also on the left-hand side. And Newcastle have changed their formations depending on the opposition, but predominantly they will play this 4-3-3 formation, and Anthony Gordon would be on penalties if Alexander Isak leaves. Fabian Schär is also another potential penalty taker. The likes of Trippier, Schär, Isak and Tonali would be on free kicks, but of course that depends on Alexander Isak's future. And with corners is between Trippier, Elanga, Lewis Hall, Gordon and Tonali. But do you think Elanga will start over Jacob Murphy from the get-go, or do you think this starting 11 is fairly accurate? With Nottingham Forest, I think their defensive line is quite locked in despite the signing of Jer Cunha from Botafogo. So Sells would be in goal. Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo and Nico Williams looks extremely solid, and the two holding midfielders would likely be Anderson and Sangare. The other possibility is Yates. The likes of Dominguez is injured until October at the moment, but maybe he'll have a step up in his recovery and be available sooner. Their new signing Ndoye will be the main right winger, replacing Anthony Elanga. His price tag is 6 million, which makes him quite appealing actually, but I think he's more of a wait and see for now. Hudson-Odoi will be on the left. He shares the same price tag. And Morgan Gibbs-White is just behind Chris Wood in that starting 11. I think those two would be amongst the standouts in terms of Nottingham Forest attackers. But I'm really looking at Milenkovic, Murillo and Nico Williams. He could be very underrated when it comes to defensive contributions. Elliot Anderson at 5.5 million will also get plenty of those points. And Matt Sells in goal will get bonus points, saves and a few clean sheets. Of course, he shared the Golden Glove with David Raya last season, and they do face each other in Game Week 4, of course, at the Emirates. Sunderland is yet another promo club, the final one covered in this video, and they have played different formations over the years, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, but in pre-season they have played a 4-3-3, and I think between the sticks they could go for Ruffs, however you say that, because Patterson is still injured. He is a major doubt to start in Game Week 1. Hume would be the main right back with Ballard and also Sealt in central defence, and Renildo Mandava, who can also play as a centre-back. He will likely play on the left-hand side. Then Siddiqui, Diarra and Granit Xhaka in the midfield. Talbi, a new signing from Club Bruges. Mayenda up front, and also a Dingra on the left who scored in a recent friendly. And they've got other options like Mark Guiu at 4.5 million, who could displace Mayenda as the starting striker, and we could see that take place very soon, and that would be great for those looking to go for Salah and Haaland simultaneously in their FPL drafts. In terms of the penalty takers and stuff like that, Isidore and Roberts would be the main ones for Sunderland. Lefy, Roberts and Mundle for the free kicks. Lefy, Roberts and Mundle for the corners as well. And for Nottingham Forest, which I failed to mention, of course, like an idiot, Chris Wood and Gibbs-White are the main penalty takers. Gibbs-White and Murillo would be on the free kicks. And for corners, Elliot Anderson, Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White as well. So that would complete the set-piece takers for both Sunderland and Nottingham Forest. Let's now move on to the final set of teams, including Tottenham Hotspur, who have been unbeaten actually in pre-season. Vicario should be the number one goalkeeper, but Kinski does suit Thomas Frank's play style a little bit more. He is much better in terms of distribution. Pedro Porro will be at right back, and Jed Spence replaces the injured Udogie, who could be out for several weeks with a knee injury. Romero and Van de Ven would partner each other in central defence. Pape Sarr is the standout Tottenham player in pre-season with 3 goals, including a brilliant halfway solo goal against Arsenal. Maybe not solo, but it was a great effort, of course, and he definitely got David Raya or caught him off guard. Bentancur will be partnering him in the midfield, Kudus and Johnson as the main wingers, and I think Bergvall could be the main attacking midfielder after the injury to James Maddison, and Heung-min Son, of course, has left for LAFC, so Richarlison could be up front because Solanke is nursing a minor ankle injury, and Thomas Frank said it should be a matter of days before he's back, but there is also the UEFA Super Cup final to think about. I think they'll do everything possible to have Solanke ready to start that game against PSG, and they'll start Richarlison against Burnley. So we could see a lot of rotation for Tottenham Hotspur in Game Week 1, and this is one of the more difficult teams to predict, and I think last season I did a fairly decent job with these predicted lineups videos with certain teams like Tottenham, but this year could be a bit more difficult with a new manager in Thomas Frank, and of course the UEFA Super Cup final being just 3 days before that Burnley fixture. With the set-piece takers, things have changed quite a bit actually with the departure of Heung-min Son. Solanke will be on penalties when he's on the pitch. In his absence, it's more difficult to kind of gauge who is on those penalty duties, but probably Richarlison, who is the like-for-like replacement up front. With the free kicks, Maddison and Borra will be the main takers, but Maddison, of course, is injured, and it seems like a serious problem. With the corners, Kulusevski, Maddison and Borra would also share them, but the Swede, Kulusevski, is also injured for quite some time, it seems, and Spurs have some good opening fixtures. In fact, for the first 12 game weeks, they're right up there, even for the first 8 game weeks. I think their medium to long-term fixtures are quite appealing, and Burnley at home in Game Week 1 is no exception. West Ham United also have a good opening fixture against Sunderland away, and they will likely play a back three and go for this 3-4-3 formation with Areola in goal, Todibo, also Mavropanos and Kilman in central defence, Wan-Bissaka and the new signing Diouf as the wing-backs, Thomas Soucek and Ward-Prowse in central midfield, Bowen and Paqueta on the wings. They have been the best players throughout pre-season, and Nicholas Füllkrug should start in Game Week 1, but Callum Wilson could take some minutes and starts off him over the course of the season. With penalties, that'll be between Paqueta, Bowen and Ward-Prowse in that order. With free kicks, there's no doubt about it, Ward-Prowse is number 1, Paqueta second, and Emerson Palmieri is third. And with corners, it's between Bowen, Ward-Prowse and Emerson Palmieri. So I think that's quite self-explanatory. And they have played a lot of different players, of course, in pre-season. Many of these clubs have done. And on the left, there was Scales, who was getting some game time. And there is the new signing of Walker-Peters, who could get a few starts at right wing back. But at Southampton, of course, he has played on the left-hand side as well. But I think Diouf is first choice. And last but not least, is Wolverhampton Wanderers, who could also play a back three, but it's slightly different, of course. It's more like the Man United formation of a 3-4-2-1. Jose Sarr in goal, a back three of Doherty, Agbadu and Totti Gomez, and Hoover is a 4 million defender. He could start a right wing back, but there's also the possibility of Bueno playing in central defence and Doherty playing as the right wing back with the departure of Nelson Semedo. Rodrigo Gomez has been reclassified in FPL and he's going to play as the left wing back. Joao Gomez and Andre could be very decent for defensive contributions. Arias is the most appealing, I think, of their players in general, alongside Strand Larsen. Bellegarde could also play in that front three. He's a decent player, but from an FPL perspective, you really should be looking at Arias and Strand Larsen, in my opinion. And Wolves have some tough opening fixtures, including Man City at home in Game Week 1 and Newcastle away in Game Week 4. With penalties, Strand Larsen should be the number 1 taker now, and Hwang Hee-chan is second. He has been the most impressive in pre-season. Arias and Bellegarde in terms of free kicks, and for corners, is between Bellegarde and Arias. So that completes the 20 teams, the predicted lineups, the opening 4 fixtures, and the set piece takers. If you want to see an updated lineups podcast, which also covers their friendlies, the results they've had, and also the star players from every single team with stats like the goals scored, the assists, and clean sheets, then let me know down in the comment section below. Another point that I think is worth mentioning is the signing of Benjamin Šeško to Man United. There is still a bit of a bidding war between Newcastle and Man United, but it seems like Šeško has chosen the Red Devils as his new destination. We don't know what his price is going to be in FPL just yet. It could be around 7.5 million, and the ownership is yet to be confirmed. The opening fixtures are what they are, of course, as covered earlier in the Man United section. He got 13 goals in the Bundesliga last season with 5 assists, and in UCL Fantasy, he got 4 goals in that competition, and across all cups, he got 27 goal contributions in general. So I think Šeško could also start up front against Arsenal. Who would have thought that? Because Gyökeres, it seemed, was going to go to Man United and Šeško to Arsenal, but instead, the roles have reversed there a little bit, and there is an update about Alexander Isak. So Eddie Howe is standing firm over his conduct, and he's excluded Isak from training and family day, and he said on Sunday, no player can expect to act poorly and train with the group as normal. You have to earn the right. We are Newcastle United. So I still think there are plenty of twists and turns in the summer transfer window, but I have covered the main signings so far and everything you need to know for Game Week 1 with players you might not have even realised have signed for a Premier League club. It's all been covered on this channel. Differentials, budget players, the best options in every single position, you name it. Not only that, but also multiple drafts. If you want to see a chip strategy video and a rating your team's podcast, then let me know down in the comment section below. And like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for FPL or UCL Fantasy. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further extra my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for even more preseason content, and keep your eyes peeled for the Game Week 1 deadline stream.